Hey, everybody. Welcome to Open the Gates. My name is Matt Burke, and on today's show, we're going to have the boys setting up Rocket. It's the magazine everybody wants to get for this whole underground comics movement. You guys got to check it out. So, everybody, I'd love for you to welcome our guest, Steve Dye, and Aldous.
Yo.
How's it going, boys? How you guys doing?
What's going on, Matt?
Oh, just making comics, man. Just trying to make some comics, draw some funny pictures, and have people, look at it and laugh at it, and
just grinding away.
Yeah.
I like
it. What's up with you guys?
Not much, man. Just trying to ride the zeitgeist of this beautiful scene into some form of success with this magazine. And each day, man, we're getting closer. The support's been fantastic, and appreciate you having us on for sure.
Oh, for sure, man. Hell, 80s made. Thanks, brother. Thanks for showing up.
Yeah.
Man. I saw the campaign. I just thought that was like such an awesome thing you guys were doing, and people can pick it up and they can, look into the whole process about making comics from the indie standpoint, and people that are kind of making books. Like for me, I grew up in the 90s, so I was like the image kid, and that was Wizard, and so I saw that and I liked that a lot. But other than that, real quick, you think you guys could maybe tell the audience that don't know you just a little bit about yourselves?
Well, all right. I'm the real Steve Dye. I've been in the publishing business for 20 some years, and I love comic books. And I too have a deep affection for the 90s. And so we're doing this magazine. It's a bit like Wizard. It's a bit like Epic Illustrated. It's a bit like Heavy Metal. It's got a lot of different things in it that Wizard didn't have. But it's aimed squarely at an indie scene that gets me excited about comics again, like I was in the 90s.
Sweet. And all this I know about you from from watching you on different shows, but more importantly, your YouTube show. You got a lot of excellent radio shows that I listen to when I'm drawing. They're great. Like The Shadow. I love The Shadow. But enough about me. A little more about you.
If imagine someone that is so steeped in nostalgia that they would rather replace or fix the audio on a 1940s radio program than talk to you, and you kind of start getting a feel for where I'm at. I love comic books. I love Americana, and there's nothing more American as far as pure entertainment goes in its purest form than the comic book. It evolved from something that was purely American in the pulp, and it became defined as a medium essentially during what I would argue is the high point, the high watermark of American culture in the 50s and the early 60s. And I think from that, so much of our society harkens back to that. So much of our current culture does. And there's something tremendously important about that. When you look at Superman, when you look at Batman, those are characters from the 1930s that were defined through the 40s that became what they are today in the 50s. And that's all because of comic books. And then as things become more corporate, as things become more marketing, it's no longer about the spinner rack in the grocery store. It's no longer about flipping those pages while mom's in the produce aisle. Now it's about whatever the cultural zeitgeist talking point politically of the moment is. And it's a shame. And it was a wonderful day the first time I listened to a Zach video and I discovered this wonderful scene. Because over on this side, and whether you're a diehard comic book fan or you're not, and that's the best part of this, right? Whether it's Comicsgate, whether you're indie comics, over here, no matter how you found it, whether you have a 30-year history of comics, whether you have a 4-month history of comics, everybody is developing an appreciation in a new way, and it's a new rebirth in a lot of ways with the internet and Indiegogo and crowdfunding, and it's a fantastic scene, and it's still developing every day. And that's what engages me. That's what motivates me. And that's why I'm joining Steve in this journey here on Rocket, man. I joined the mission. I put on the flight suit and we're blasting off because hell yeah, brother, this is the path of the future.
Yeah, man. It's awesome, man. Like, I love that this network's here. I've got to put out a couple books and backed and got those mailed off too. And if it wasn't for Comicsgate and the indie scene, I wouldn't be here right now. And again, I'm going to go back to it. Like what you guys are doing showcasing independent artists and creators like me in your books helps get their name out. It helps get the scenes out there. You know what I mean? The scene itself helps get the books out.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. We appreciate that. And, you know, I'll largely defer to Aldous to give the real pitch, but that's really a lot of emphasis is to spotlight 4 or 5 really big successes, but also to divert some of that spotlight around to a lot of other creators. You know, we've got 20 plus creators in here, and maybe, you know, provide a bit of a sampler of their work, because not everybody, there was a time Aldous refers to when we were catching those first Zach videos. I mean, you pretty much, there was Jawbreakers. And then there was, you know, but I mean, it grew and it grew and it snowballed is the point. And there's so much stuff out there that, you know, I'm as tapped in as most people. Aldous is more tapped in than practically anybody. We've got a roving band of artists to track stuff down. And at the same time, you know, not everybody knows about everything. And I can't put everything into this magazine, but I'm trying to put a lot of it in there. And maybe you pick it up because you want to read somebody that you are familiar with, and maybe you stumble across something that you really, really like too. So,
oh yeah, like I remember reading in those books. I really like the articles, the long ones. You know, I could really get into the artist's head and see what's you know what their influences were.
I don't think anybody for the you probably will, but yeah, most people don't know what the hell I'm talking about when I talk about the Roy Thomas publications like Alter Ego and stuff like that. And they were not visually arresting. You know, Wizard was fun to look at. A lot of that stuff wasn't fun to look at, but to me, it was an immense amount of fun to read. You know, to read these interviews with creators, to learn about the history of not only the comics themselves, but what inspirations these guys brought to the table. You know, did they have a happy childhood? Did they, you know, ask for porridge down at the corner? You know, but one thing that is a very common theme in certainly in this mission of Rocket, and I think in comics in general, is that it's not easy. You know, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of people have to do a lot of work to produce a comic. You know, and if you're a one-man shop, it's an immense amount of work, and you know, those don't always work. The common theme is these people all put in the work. They put in the work. You know, there's success stories to be found here. I like telling them, and that's the one thing that they all revolve around is well, you know, I did a lot of push-ups, and now I can do push-ups. You know,
I've been there.
Yeah,
been there, done that. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I got a crazy question, you guys, man. What's your favorite band? What's your favorite metal band if you guys are into metal?
You know, if we're talking metal, I have a hard time.
It's vast.
I'm a bit of it. No. I got to go to Megadeth.
Okay.
You know, anybody says Metallica, I say Megadeth because I'm a huge Dave Mustaine fan, and I'm not. Kirk's playing is all right, but it's, you know, I've heard all that before. Huge Dave Mustaine fan. I don't know, Pantera. I like that era of metal.
Yeah,
you know, it's got a bit of a thrash to it.
Yeah,
but
thrash.
It's not. Dude, I lived in the South Bay of Los Angeles. In the aughts. Yeah. I've seen more death metal and whatever. I've hung around with the dude that played drums in this band called Slave Driver 13, and they were deep in the death metal scene.
Oh, hell yeah.
You know, all up and down the beaches of the West Coast back when. But yeah, at the same time, I'm going to say, I know it's a real stock answer, but most people aren't going to back it up with a discourse on how innovative Dave Mustaine's playing is versus some of the other, you know, I mean, I'm not a huge Metallica fan. I don't like Lars's drumming. All that is horribly old school. I know you kids now, you listen to stuff that's, you know.
I listen to everything. I listen to all the metal. I mean, I like my Swedish and my Scandinavian shit the most, but I listen to everything. You know what I mean? My guitar player, one of my best friends, Dave, his favorite band is Megadeth. He plays all their songs. So I get to hear, you know, from him and stuff. But all this, your band.
Well, you know, as much as I want to agree with Steve, I'm kind of asking, is he my true enemy or my false friend? Anxiety's attacking me again, and my air is getting thin. But I'm going to have to go about maybe half a generation before Megadeth. And you can associate it with my appreciation for literature, if you will, or you can associate it with just my appreciation for excellent album art. But Iron Maiden,
I mean, I could have done that.
You know, when you say that the mariner kills the bird of good omen, when you can make that lyric work, and you're tossing back an allusion to Coleridge, you know, that's just that you're hitting something on a different level, and you've still got the power chords. The tone.
There's a lot of topics with Maiden, man. Like their stage,
the
way they started out, the genre
Adrian.
switched. You know, like the first album. You know, like there's a lot to unpack with
well,
that.
Me and Aldous do occasionally get at odds, which would be like virtual every time we have a conversation.
But that's good,
and
right?
Yeah, and Adrian Smith, and is that right? I don't know. You know, Iron Maiden, I could have easily won a decade back. Iron Maiden had the dual harmonies of, I want to say it's Adrian Smith, and I want to say,
that's what I'm
damn it. And I loved everything about the music. And at the same time, I don't need some diminutive little midget of a wannabe Norse god wailing all of that. Ain't really, I mean, to each his own, but you know.
Well, if you have a problem with it, you can always run to the hills, Steve.
Well, you're kind of like a Dio fan, and I'm a Richie Blackmore
Damn right, I'm
fan.
a Dio fan.
I like Dio.
You know why? Because I'm a red-blooded, meat-eating, beer-drinking American that smokes cigars.
I love how the songs sound.
Yeah, they're epic, man. And his voice, Dio's voice is powerful.
Well,
like,
Dio's
voice,
and that's an untoward comparison because fucking Dio, and then there's Bruce Dickinson. Which is, you know, I know a lot of people really love the dude, but it's not my bag. I love the dual guitar harmonies, but Bruce Dickinson wailing away incessantly about dragons and fucking princesses,
dude,
and whatever the fuck. I don't know, man.
I don't. So you went in one sentence from slamming Dio to then slamming up Maiden. Like what, dude?
No, I was only. I did not slam,
dude. What you need to do?
Dio.
You need to take a moment, and you just need to ride the tide.
I don't even understand the full weight of that accusation. All I remember is you prefaced it by saying that I'd slammed Dio, and I did not slam Dio. Just his lyrics. I will slam the lyrics.
Holy Diver? You have a problem with the lyrics to Holy Diver?
Yeah, Holy Diver's pretty good.
Okay,
but a lot of it's
pretty solid, right? It's crazy too how metal, like it leans itself so much to comic books. Like you can make a whole fucking metal album and make a comic book of said metal album, right? But you gotta write it like Iced Earth. Yeah, like Iced Earth with Spawn.
Well, I think that's any good lyricist. I don't think it's exclusive to metal. Metal maybe translates a little bit better, but you know, even if you look at more of the Appalachian folk inspired stuff, and there's a huge tie-in to metal from that we'll get into at another point, not on this show.
Yeah,
but if you look at like the mythology of like the Appalachian folktale and its influence into bluegrass, and then its evolution from bluegrass into blues and jazz, and then rock and roll. It's storytelling, and that's the importance, is that it's that southern Appalachian southern influence into rock and roll that gives you that story, and that's where you get, you know, some of the early Stone stuff where they're telling a story that translates up into Bob Dylan's Desire is it Desire? It's Blood on the Tracks with Lily Rosemary and the Jack of Hearts, all the way up to Nirvana's Polly. All of them are telling a story. If you're a Screaming Trees fan,
this Nirvana shit.
Screaming Trees, man, dude. A lot of that Seattle scene, the reason that sound worked and the reason that sound resonated, it was hearkening back to that, and a lot of those guys were looking back at blues music and playing it in their own way and just doing something a little bit different. So like when the Screaming Trees are singing, you know, in the pines, like, dude, that goes way back. That's an 1860s corollary. And you know, that evolution just continues, and then you get bands like Soundgarden out there that are putting a little bit more guitar.
Well, it's also an age-old story,
metal
too.
For sure.
I as a sidebar to this particular, I'm gonna run the train right off the tracks. It's an age-old thing. Zeppelin didn't properly credit Robert Johnson, and you know, a host of others, certainly. But, you know, Cobain didn't write "Where'd You Sleep Last Night?" And
no,
Yeah, but that's what everybody.
Well, and their
That's
version
what's now
sucks. That's why I
associated
didn't
with the
mention it. I'm
song. Well,
Like for me, like the real like first really heavy sounding band, like on all cylinders, right, was fucking Motorhead. Like I think
Oh,
like, they're like the
Fuck
ones,
yeah.
dude, that came in and
Fuck
said, all right,
yeah.
like this is where we're gonna tie it all together and like make everything heavy, like the double bass, the heavy guitars, you know, the Lemmy's vocals, you know, and then the stage presence and the cowboy like Ace of Spades, and it just was outlaw, and it's I don't know, man. Like for me, you know, they're not one of my. I mean, they're one of my favorites, but they're not my favorite. But I like for me, that's where I kind of like.
Well, I mean, yeah, Fast Eddie Clark doesn't hold up particularly well, but
no.
but
Right.
Lemmy on the other hand, and add me to the list of thousands of guys that lived in LA in that era, and
I gotta show you my next book. Sorry, I had to say that real quick. I think you might someday. You might laugh at it. You might get a kick out of it.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't have to move on. I'm good with this. We can just, back rocket. We're going to talk about music. That's fine.
Oh no, man.
Yeah.
I like picking your guys' brains. You guys are you guys have a lot of knowledge for me to consume on. But I was wondering, is it okay if I maybe share your guys' campaign, or would you guys like to share it, or?
No, feel free, man.
Yeah, you can share
Hell
it.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Your stuff, pimp our stuff. Then we'll go back to talking about Lemmy.
So I'm gonna share your campaign page right now. Just give me one moment. You guys getting ready for the turkey?
I don't really know what the plan is. It's all over the map. It's starting to put me off a little bit. I might. Well,
let me ask you this, Matt, as a little bit of a sidebar. Have you ever seen John Carpenter's 1982 film, The Thing?
Yeah, I own it on DVD.
Okay. I love that film. And that film is a perfect analogy for every Thanksgiving and holiday I do with the in-laws.
I didn't know where you were going, but now I do, and I'm with you.
So when you ask me, am I ready for the turkey?
Oh man.
Why don't we just sit here? Why don't we just sit here and see what happens?
Right?
Yeah.
Well, here it is, boys. You see it? Rocket.
That's
Mission
it.
2. All right. First of all, love your fucking logo. Pardon my French. I love the
3D Robin. All credit goes to old schooler 3D Robin.
Yeah, if Steve and I are old school CG, then 3D Robin is the grandfather. He's been around before us, man. I
remember him.
Yeah,
in the video game.
Ground floor. 3D. He designed the logo. He gives me learned counsel. Like, that shit, Steve. You need to fix that. He does that kind of thing. He does
more erudite when I say
the little imprint badges. Yeah, just as a preemptive, there's a lot of design touches. I lay out the magazine. It's one of the things I like doing. It's fun. But all of the cool bits that I use to lay out the magazine, all the rockets and backgrounds and graphic elements, that's my friend 3D Robin.
I love the text label fantastic. Too. Where you have the exclamation point as the I. You took the C out.
That is both one of the best graphic choices between the exclamation point and the rocket, and it's also like our Achilles heel because it makes it a pain in the ass to search for.
Yeah, yeah. I had to search, and I found it on. I had to search for Google for this, and I found the first campaign, right? So then I clicked on Steve Dye's name. Then I went to Steve Dye, and then I clicked on his campaigns. Then I went to campaign. I'm like, all right, there's mission 2.
We don't like to make anything easy.
It was kind of labyrinthian trying to get there.
but we don't like to make anything easy, and then Indiegogo swoops in and makes it even a little more difficult. So cool.
I was wondering, brothers, is it okay if I share your trailer real quick?
Absolutely. Man.
Hell yeah.
Primary ignition.
Rocket Magazine. Built to propel indie comics into the stratosphere. A modern ode to publications like Wizard, Epic Illustrated, Alter Ego, and Heavy Metal. Featuring Billy Tucci, Dan Fraga, Andy Smith, Peter Cimetti, and Mark Bolton. Additional content, including tutorials and previews from the Barton Brothers, Camel Moon, Crowfire Studios, Kier Covington, Dean James, Rob Arnold, and many more. Become part of the mission.
Sweet, man. I like that. You know what else I like about this? It rocks. So
Nice. Thanks,
I was
dude.
checking. I got the story right here. Let's check it out. We got the flight plan. Man, this cover. Who did this cover right here?
EJ Morges was kind
okay.
enough to
Yeah, man. He's a beast, bro. He's like one of the other guys that
he's
draws
fantastic.
Yep.
He's fantastic. Well, I had a little feature about EJ in mission number 1, and he got a hold of me shortly after receiving his physical copies and was pretty enthusiastic, and he was like, when are you going to do another one? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. I kind of hoped it would do a little better. I don't know if there's a market for this, frankly. No, you got to do another one. We need this. So I basically just kind of took that conversation where I had him cornered into, well, I'll do one if you'll do the cover. So that's how that worked. Pretty good.
That's so awesome. I love what he did with King Cryptid, US Assassin. What I really like the attention to detail is the toe of Rascal, like how he just got the 2 toes on each foot. He didn't have to do that, but it's like,
I mean, all apologies to Fraga, but I mean,
that's awesome, dude. You know what I mean? Like
EJ's out Dan and Dan there with the Rascal. It's pretty happy.
You Rascal. That's awesome, dude. Yeah, that's cool, man. So right here, you have an interview with Billy Tucci. Talking about
pleasure of a man.
One of the godfathers of crowdfunding. Was it him and Polito?
Yeah, him and Polito.
Yep.
As far as I'm
concerned.
Well,
I mean, even before that, Tucci's the guy. He pitched She to Image back in the day, and Image told him to pound sand. So he took it and then proceeded to build the entire Crusade Comics empire off of the back of She. And, and that's part of the story of what Rocket represents and what we're trying to get across is, none of these guys had an easy path. None of them were handed anything. They did the push-ups, as Steve alluded to earlier. They worked for this. And when you're talking about a guy like, whether it's Billy Tucci or Andy Smith, they all came to the quote-unquote indie scene in their own way. And whether that was going indie at first and then going mainstream and then coming out of it, or like Tucci and Fraga even. And, I mean, Fraga did it as a 16-year-old kid. He was slinging ink. I mean, he's right down there in the trenches with Shelby before he's even 18. And when you're talking that kind of thing, it's an entirely different concept. And in those aspects, whether it's Tucci's rise through indie ranks or whether it's Fraga starting off just slinging ink as a 16-year-old, they don't talk about that very much. And that's where these interviews are really nice, is because it's stuff that they don't mention constantly. You can watch their YouTube channel for years and sit down and talk to these guys. And if you even John Malin's had a channel for 6 years, 7 years in the CG land. If you read the interview from Mission 1, you're going to learn a ton about John Malin you never knew, because it's not stuff that John talks about. And when you start reading and listening to what John went through and his journey to where he got to where he is today, it puts everything into a different context. So there are people out there that will say John Malin's arrogant. And I disagree with that. John Malin's not arrogant. He's earned it. He understands what it takes. He understands what it takes to get to that point. And, he gets a little, I would argue, defensive, perhaps, when people are trying to take the easy road. Because, he literally built that bridge. And when you're literally building that bridge for 12 hours a day and then going home and putting the effort in to draw, and then you get accepted, I think that doesn't put necessarily a chip on your shoulder, but it definitely gives you a little bit of a right to go like, no, man, you got to earn your stripe. And
yeah, definitely.
It's not about putting hurdles up. It's about letting people know, like, man, you got to earn it. Like, this doesn't come overnight. Nobody's success comes overnight. Everybody worked for it. Everybody put in that training time. And no matter how good your first book does, you always have to remember that. No matter how good you do, you always have to remember that. Harken back to it, because you're going to have rises and you're going to have falls in your journey. And if you get too high or if you get too low, don't let it dissuade you. Always stay level. Be Billy Tucci, be Dan Fraga, be Andy Smith, be Mark Polton.
I just wanted to interject.
Peter Cimenti.
Yeah, Peter Cimenti.
Yeah,
I mean, he could have been. I believe he could have been pretty comfortable continuing to just create a comic. To be working on a comic, and he dreamed bigger than that. He decided to become a publisher, and then there's a lot of hurdles along the way to first try to gain traction in a diamond distribution type of situation. And then to say the hell with it, I'll do it myself. And then to be a success at that is, it's a real testament to having big ideas and putting in the work to achieve them.
Yeah. Like for me, Billy Tucci, like how I got into the whole, Comicsgate thing and independent books. I was watching Ethan videos, and I don't know if I stumbled across crowdfunding comics after Ethan or before, but I was watching Billy Tucci and Niall, and he had all those people on, for me to see this, you get to get another perspective of, because I like the stories. I like the nuts and the bolts of where people got to where they're at and their whole like process, and I see that.
Billy and Niall's show, what Pop XP, I think it is now.
Yeah. Pop XP.
Yeah. The other name was easier for me to remember, but it's great because they get on some real luminaries in the comics field and have the same kind of in-depth interviews about the history of their careers that it's been my privilege and pleasure to be able to do with guys like Billy.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. And you guys also got like some super fan artwork on here.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve.
I just want to say that's part of the idea of I want to show all of the talent that's in here, And for instance, in mission number 1, Keir Covington was in that section because that's kind of where Keir was, and it certainly had nothing. I always got to issue this disclaimer. I don't think being in Rocket had anything to do with Keir now working with Peter at Alterna on King Cryptid. Man, that's all down to Keir.
Can't wait for that one.
That's Keir's talent, determination, and all of that. But it is, on the other hand, I take some pride in that I'm the first guy that printed his work. I put it in here, and now he's gone on to bigger and better things. And John Orchard Studios, I think he has aspirations, and he's certainly got talent. So, here's hoping that he can go on to be working on a successful project.
Hell yeah, man. That's
or maybe awesome. He is, for all I know, but I like his art. So.
Right. And whether it's the fan art segments or whether it's the shorts, and when I say shorts, the shorter style interviews that we're doing that then carry forth previews of some of their work, and that's with Camel and the Barton brothers. And these guys are up and comers for sure. Everybody knows their names if you've been paying attention, but there's a lot of insight that you can gain on both their work and like why is Camel doing a Copper Age inspired book? It's interesting when you get the chance to like hear his reasoning and hear what inspired him and how long he's been working on the Boots and Heels campaign. When you're talking to the Barton brothers, like why is their stuff so it has a different look, and how much of that is just because they're Australian and how much of that is because of what their influences were. And when you hear about their influences, you're going to go like, the light bulb goes off and you're like, I get it now. And that's the kind of thing that, again, you don't get those kind of things. It's not the kind of thing they talk about. It's the kind of thing that we try to pull out of them when we're doing those interviews. And the best thing about all these interviews is some of them will be, we're going to record them and then we're going to parse them out and they're going to be on a channel in the future. And whatever the future of this magazine is, those are always going to be recorded because that's important. I mean, the passion here for Steve and I isn't just about putting the magazine out. That's a huge aspect of it, and giving a lot of these guys a preview, giving them an audience that they might not normally have. But it's also about just recording some of this. We're at an important apex of comics in general. Things are changing, and if you're a historian at all, I mean, all of this has happened before, right? I mean, it happened with Mike Friedrich's Star Reach. It happened with Wally Wood's Wit's End. It's just everything is hyper accelerated now because of the internet. I mean, it's the old joke that a day in Comicsgate time is like a week in normal time, right? So it's the same thing. I mean, it seems like we've been here for decades. We've only been here for
10 years. Been 10 years, bro.
Seems like, yeah. And it kind of has.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it
was like a decade, right? Like little bullets, little like things in the timeline,
Yeah. It kind of it depends on where how do you carve out that timeline? But without a doubt, it's a extremely fast moving news cycle, and a lot of things are some of us old timers remember them somewhat well. You know,
Hey,
I know some guys where I can like, hey, you remember what happened in December 2018 and this and that?
Yeah.
Could you remind me of all the I don't really remember, but this guy wants something and you know, but the point is as Aldous says, it's I like it to a fast moving train.
Yeah.
It's you can jump on at any point, but you're going to get like swept right along, and you won't have a whole lot of time to go back into the cars behind you and meet people. And I don't know, that analogy kind of falls apart, but it's as Aldous says, you know, hopefully we're preserving some of the history of it. And I mean, not unlike it's a bit of an homage to Wizard, but not that much. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, I've got a stack of Wizards, and
totally.
If I want to remember what was going on, I mean, I basically do. You know, I remember Image and I remember all that stuff that happened, but at the same time, it's a little slice of history to go back through it, which I do sometimes, and reread interviews with some of my favorite creators. So
yeah, like, well, you were touching on like you have these interviews, you know what I mean, as a side thing, you know. For me, I go back because I like Bernie Wrightson. So for me, it's hard for me to find interviews with him. There's just like this most famous one where he's like in a cabin out in somewhere in the north, and he steps out and he's walking around in the snow, and it's like one of the only videos I can get of Bernie Wrightson because I want to know his thought process. I bought I have his Mary Shelley's Frankenstein book. I got the French one, a big one, for $40. And I try to study his line work, and you know, I want to know what he was talking about. You know what I mean? So that's on a side note. That's really cool. You guys are doing that, and you could.
Well,
you know,
it does capture.
Yeah,
I'm going to shut up for a while and let Aldous do the talking after this. You know, I think it is like, for example, a book I always recommend to anybody interested in comics, either as a reader or a creator, is Miller and Eisner. Or maybe it's Eisner and Miller, but it's basically, it's just Frank Miller going over to Eisner's house and Eisner's very twilight years. And, you know, Eisner's wife made sandwiches and they talked about comics and the history of everything that Will had done and a whole lot of what Frank had done. At the same time, when I was leafing through a Wizard, I mean, it's been a year or so ago, but I was leafing through one, and there's the fast moving timeline of Comicsgate, sure, but Sin City seems like a million years ago, and I'm not even talking about the comic book. I'm talking about the movie Sin City. Seems like, and I don't know, was it 20 years ago? It was 15 years ago, for damn sure.
For sure, 15.
Yeah. And anyway, that particular Wizard had an interview with Frank Miller, and he was talking about working with Robert Rodriguez to bring his comic book, and it's preserved there for all time. It's Frank Miller in real time talking about working on Sin City, the movie, with Robert Rodriguez and what they were both bringing to the table and what they were trying to do. And it was before the movie ever came out. And, you know, it's just a little slice of history that would otherwise not be preserved. So,
yeah, exactly.
I like that. Yeah, I like that.
And you guys have breakdowns right here with artist interviews about said breakdowns, the process of how they set up a page panel. That's really cool.
And this I consider a huge get for us because I think in the next 5 years, if not 8, Dean James is going to be a major name. His level up over the last year has just been amazing. If you look at the Embrace one, and then you look at what he's putting out now, and then for him to be so willing and so open to do a breakdown on just dynamic storytelling and how does he construct a panel and talk about it. I mean, every artist approaches things a different way. Obviously, there's ground rules, but how they approach those ground rules and how they take them into account, this is something that helps both an artist, but more importantly, it helps those people that are coming into CG. It helps those people that are coming into indie comics that have never been exposed to comics before, or the last time they did was 30 years ago. It gives you an entirely different perspective to start looking at comic book pages and how does the art work. If you're not an artist, you don't understand vanishing point. You don't understand multiple vanishing points. You don't understand how to add dynamics. How does a two-dimensional image look dynamic? And progression of panels. When you say action happens in the gutter. What do you mean? And, Dean's going through all that. And he explains it in how do you construct it? How do you plan for that? And then how do you lay it out? And then when you read through what Dean did here, and it's phenomenal. And then you go over and you look at anybody's art, you understand it a little bit more, and it adds a little bit more context to it. And that's the secondary aspect, of what we want to bring here with Rocket. It's not just, hey, here's some interviews. It's not just wizard.
Right.
It's not just this glossy, trade mag. There's a little bit of comics book journal in this. There's a little bit of nostalgia and history. There's a little bit of comic books buyer's guide in this for guys that are, bought shit back in the 80s.
Nice.
This is something that's got a little bit of depth to it. There's there's always going to be a little bit of nostalgia and a little bit of deep appreciation that seeps through, just because that's who Steve and I are at the end of the day when it comes to this stuff. That's what we appreciate the medium. We love the medium, and our passion's going to come through. And whether we're writing the article or editing the article, we're always going to try to highlight that. And that's the end goal of the magazine, is to build excitement. I mean, you should be able to pick this thing up and read it, and then set it down and come back to it and still get a vibe off of it. Pull something different out of it. No different than you would any comic book. Every time I pick up Watchmen or The Dark Knight Returns, I get a little bit something different. And this is meant to be the same fashion, only instead of a story, we're highlighting creators, and we're highlighting what the stories that they've brought forth and the reason why. And that's the goal, is to constantly strive forward, constantly push, keep that satellite in orbit, keep the rocket, keep on going, and, push forward. Always push to the stars.
Got to keep going, man. You guys got some cool tiers up right here. You got the full payload right here for 115.
Yeah, that's the whole kit and caboodle. That's issue 1. That's issue 2. That's the T-shirt. That's the beanie and the koozie. And
nice koozie.
in the event that you are like Steve or I, and your free time is at a premium, sometimes you like to enjoy your free time with a little bit of a cold beverage. And it's always nice. This isn't, this is 120 plus pages. This isn't something you just sit down and read in 15 minutes. So, you got to make sure your beer stays cold while you're reading it. And
you got to.
You got to have a koozie for those kind of things. And then, if you're like Steve and I also, you enjoy a little bit of nicotine, and you're going to step outside, and, not all parts of the country are pleasant throughout the year. So you're going to need a beanie to keep your head warm while you're having your cigarette and your beer, and you enjoy a little bit of good comic content. So we try to keep you covered on every range. We got something for everybody. All of the tiers below this are basically just breakdowns of either just the book and the beanie, the book and the koozie. And then you can have the add-on of the first issue if you'd like. So, and I encourage everybody to get that first issue. There's the mail-in interview is awesome. And there's a first. It's the first and only ever interview recorded with Cecil.
Ooh, nice. I think I remember that. I think I remember seeing pictures of that on Twitter, where it had Steve and Cecil somewhere like by a beach or something like that, or a bar or something like that. That's cool, man.
Yeah, they met up and had some drinks. So it was, and it's a good time. Those kind of things are just they're moments captured in print, and there's a certain magic to that. And for all those out there that are the first thing I usually hear is like, but why a magazine? It's 2022. Well, because physical media still matters.
It matters, and you don't want your eyes to get fucking fried out of your skull.
Well,
like
even
mine,
beyond that, man.
Staring on
I've
holding
got,
it. It's man.
Last time I checked, old issues of Heavy Metal are still going for a good premium because they're full of great content. Exactly. Hey, remember that Mobius interview from the October 1983 issue? No, I don't. Well, if you want to get it now, it's like $50.
Right.
So, and in there he talks about things that he just didn't talk about. There's hardly, I think it's the only time he ever mentioned some of the, oh man, I can't remember the name of I did a video on it about 3 years ago. He talked about doing some concept art for a movie that ended up it got greenlit, it got canceled, and it got greenlit again in the early 90s, and then it got canceled again. But he talks about it. He mentions it in passing. And without that one interview, and without that context of the art showing up at an auction, like decades later, you never would have known he did it. But there it is in print.
It's in
He's
there.
mentioning it, and there's little things like that that are important about print. That it happened, and it's recorded forever. Because when you're talking digital, man, digital changes every day. My my namesake illusions aside, don't trust the digital overlords that run the servers, man. Trust the printed page always. So
Well, plus, if the lights go out, they're coming to my house because I got all the books to read. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can read it on the porch
With the
you can read
candle
it at the picnic table.
You guys
Yeah,
got,
which I guess you could do with your phone, but yeah, I don't know. It's not the same thing to me.
you guys
I like
got
the
a
tactile. I like having a nice glossy 2-page. I like having spreads.
Yeah.
Especially
Totally.
if I'm looking at a comic book type of magazine, I want to see, stuff laid out nicely.
Yeah, I'm total
And,
physical myself, man. I like the hold the book in my hands.
Well, somebody with a bit of a background in magazine design, to be specific, it's frustrating to be told that, okay, now we're going to fit everything into a format that somebody can scroll on their phone.
Yeah.
Get out of here. Just leave.
Seriously, man.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't look good. It's not just as a somebody that creates content, but as somebody that consumes a hell of a lot of content. If I really give a shit about it, I will at least be reading it on my computer, or I can blow it up on the screen and there's some, but I read various updates from various, say, motocross sites on my phone, but it's not the same thing as holding a Racer X Illustrated magazine in my hands and reading a full-length feature.
It's way better, man. You guys are at 87 backers right now, and it'd be cool to get to that 100 backer mark. You guys only got 11 days left, so what's that?
It would be
just
cool.
Just a few more backers. So you guys, back the blast off. Get over here, get Rocket.
Yeah, and we are not extending. We're doing our 30 days and then going in demand. And part of the reason we're doing that is just we need to get our print rolling. We got, in order to hit our deadline, we got to start settling on where we're going to go with this. And this is a 100-pound interior paper glossy with a 110-pound cardstock cover. So
that's a thickie.
Yeah, it's thick. It ain't no joke.
They're pretty thick.
Yeah, that's a thick.
Yeah, they're
thickie.
They're pretty big.
So we get a lot of, as I was mentioning to Matt before the show started, you can hear some of the printers wince as you're talking about your page count and what you're looking for when you're talking quotes. So we got to get this ball rolling, and so 11 days. We'd love to hit our goal. I mean, obviously, we'd love to hit more than that. And really, if this is something you believe in, if this is something that you're passionate about, like we are, and you think this has a place in indie comics and the Comicsgate space, you don't have to back it. Share the link. Let's get some love going out there for it, and show us that there's demand. We're probably going to do a third issue, but we need to see a lot more demand if we're going to go beyond that. I mean, we'd love to get this to a bi-yearly or even a quarterly. But to get to either of those spots, we've got to see more of a response. And I hate to sound like I'm begging. I'm not begging. I'm saying like I'm thrilled.
It is what it is. Yeah,
I thank everybody that backed it so far. But
I think it's a really, really good product. I think it's a lot of value. I can't be completely objective about it, but it's 120 plus pages for your $25. It's not something that you're gonna. You might have to consume it in more than one meal is what I'm saying. You're not just going to sit down and go through it. And
no, so it's about,
I like it. I hope there's a market for it. If
for
there
sure.
is,
and,
we'll make more. I promise.
Right. We think
and
there's
if there
a
isn't,
then, But so it's about that, it's about that response. And, if this doesn't work, if this fizzles out, we'll take a step back and we'll find something else. But somewhere in this, there's something that is vitally important. And whether it's in,
I'm just gonna go
this,
back to riding wheelies.
in this shrouding,
put my helmet on and go back to riding wheelies. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back out on the motocross circuit. Something like that.
But there's something here. And hey, Mad Ruth, great to see you. And whether there's whether it's this, whether it's a different format, we're going to find something and we're going to do it because this is important to us, and this it's important to the scene too. And that's the hard thing to get across at times is what does this mean? Well, if you understood what wizard really meant, if you understood what epic meant, and both, and really, I mean, we're talking epic, we're talking heavy metal, we're talking wizard, we're talking alter ego. Only one of those magazines still remains, and the one that remains is a pale imitation of what it was at its peak. So we're fighting a battle that's uphill, and it's something we readily recognize. But at the same time, like, man, I think back, how awesome are those old heavy metal issues?
Man,
Why
a magazine? There's no market for magazines. Why would you do a magazine? I don't know.
Because it's there.
I was told 10 years ago that there wouldn't be any physical comic books anymore.
Well, no, man, I went to the grocery store today. There was like 50 magazines there. So someone's buying them and they're still there.
Yeah.
Well, don't assume that. That's a different discussion about major publishers and periodicals.
Yeah,
and
let's just go with it. Yeah, let's just go with that observation.
But I do got one question for you guys. What's your favorite movie?
Mine's out of left field.
I'm going to say. Well, I'm trying to think what will piss Aldous off. I'm going to say Liberty, the man who shot Liberty Valance. I'm going to go with that.
Really? Wow.
Well,
mine is.
I'm not serious about it, but I thought maybe it might trigger you.
Mine is the 1968 Sleeper by John Sturgis. The first major film role for one of my favorite actors, Patrick McGoohan, and that is Ice Station Zebra.
Okay, I'll have to check both those out.
If you've never seen it, it's a classic Cold War spy thriller that puts it just puts an exclamation point on McLean's original novel. It's one of those weird adaptations that exceeds your expectations after you've read the book, and it's phenomenally acted. There's one scene in particular that's always stuck with me, and I've often just watched it up to the sequence and then stopped watching it and then gone back again. And they're in a race to get to Antarctica because a satellite has crashed and they're trying to get the film out of it. And Patrick McGoohan plays a British Secret Service agent that's on board a U.S. submarine captained by Rock Hudson. And he's been super calm up to a certain point. And they get a message that they've got to hurry because the Russians are getting there. And Patrick McGoohan's getting, after some sabotage on the sub, he's getting a little rattled. And he's super calm and he's drinking his coffee with both hands. And he smashes it down and he just starts screaming, "Get me there. You have to get me there." And it's just, it's such a great, powerful moment by McGoohan. Hearkening back to his like the air and the authority that he brought with the prisoner, and even before that was Secret Agent Man. But it's and Hudson is just deadpan the whole time because he's a U.S. naval captain and he really doesn't give a shit what this British guy is saying. And it's so well acted on every level. Jim Brown stars in a guest starring role, does a really good job. Ernest Borgnine, not his best performance by far, but still a solid movie overall. Fap's cinematography too should not be disregarded. He did an excellent job. Special effects are ahead of their time, but dated now. You're going to be shocked that it's a 68 film when you see it, filmed in 67. But I mean, Hayes and Fink's screenplay is phenomenal. They did an excellent job adapting McLean's book, and it's a great film. That's probably more than you ever wanted to hear about Ice Station Zebra.
I like to hear about that. I like to hear about movies too that are in the snow. What was that?
The audience is probably more concerned with special effects than I am, because I certainly watch a lot of old Westerns and continue to do so. But
I love the Westerns.
At the risk of steering me and Aldous into agreement, because it's better radio if we're arguing. Well, he brings up Sturgis, and I think The Sons of Katie Elder could be my final answer. Final answer. My favorite movie, The Sons of Katie Elder. I haven't seen any of these. Ask me another night.
I'm gonna go watch them.
Answer, but.
Well, and Sturgis was arguably his first film, which is The Man Who Dared from 46. There's a little bit, if you watch Katie Elder and then you go back and watch The Man Who Dared, it's really, and Sturgis does this a lot, where he harkens back and you can see lessons learned. And that's why I love Sturgis's filmography. He's one of America's greatest underregarded directors. Houston gets like huge praise, and Sturgis is just forgotten amongst the general public. And it's a goddamn tragedy, because Sturgis, I think, did probably I think his filmography is better than Houston, which is probably going to set Steve off. But yeah,
no, I'm with you.
All right.
I mean, yeah, we're veering into bad radio here, but I'm with you.
No, man, Girl in White from 52. Man, what was the one from 63? A Great Escape.
I love movies. Oh, I love the Great Escape.
Yeah. The Great Escape.
Is that the
I
Birdman?
almost
Is that
went
the
that
Birdman?
direction. I was watching, I think it was Bancroft earlier, and waiting for this show, and they were talking. No, it was Andy Smith's closeout. Let me take that back. Everybody go back Kozar. Andy Smith is closing up, but and Andy's a great guy and deserves all the success. So go back Kozar. But they were talking about the Great Escape came up.
Is that the Birdman of Alcatraz that's in that? Is that what it was about?
No, Great Escape is World War II. Americans and
okay.
British trying to escape out of a German POW camp.
They were saying Steve McQueen jumped the motorcycle over the barbed wire, and I pointed out that it was actually his friend Bud Eakins who performed the stunt. But it's that movie. Yep.
Yeah, Bud Eakins also did a lot of the driving scenes in Le Mans from 71.
Yeah,
I was watching an interview with McQueen yesterday.
Eakins was McQueen's right hand.
Sugar.
But yeah, I mean, you look back at, we're getting way. People are going to tune out by the droves if we could start talking about.
Well, this is movies,
and
you know, talk about movies on here too. So,
well, I mean, you get back
a lot
to
of people.
Sturgis.
I don't know about these movies, you know, and I'm gonna go back, you know, and I'm gonna rewatch this, and I'm gonna check these movies out. I love movies, and like comics and movies, they go hand in hand. They all come from them storyboards, you know.
Right. No, and I don't think you can go wrong. I mean, at the end of everything we're talking about, Sturgis's last film was The Eagle Has Landed, I think in 77. And Clint Eastwood, Richard Burke.
We did Joe Kidd, for fuck's sakes. He did The Great Escape. He did
Joe Kidd was 70, wasn't it?
Yeah, 71 or 2 or something, maybe.
No, because it had to be at least 71, because he did Marooned in 69. And then he was on the production for Le Mans.
But then he was on Le Mans for like 2 years.
And then he quit.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You know what I liked about Wizard? Like as a kid, what I really liked? I liked the fan castings. Do you remember those? Like, what if they made a movie? Like they had Clint Eastwood as Cable. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think that for me, I think at least my brain remembered it this way, or I saw it in Wizard. You know, what if Mel Gibson played Wolverine? Like for me, that was always like Mel Gibson from Braveheart. Like I could always picture him as Wolverine, you know. What if you guys did that for the indie books? Had like one page in there in the back or something.
Well, you know, it's funny. It's funny you say that.
Because it's so hard to find an actor that isn't a freaking weirdo.
Right.
Hey, but you could throw in like, you know, it's like a fan cast. You know, you could pick somebody like the 80s and 90s and maybe.
I like the idea. I did like that.
I love that shit though, man. That was cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and Mad Ruth points out that Andy Smith's book is Kordath. And Kozar obviously is the Barton brothers, who are featured in.
It's late at
Rocket.
night, Ruth. I
just
appreciate
got my
I appreciate
Kozar.
that, Ruth. I appreciate it.
But Mad Ruth also has. If you're listening to this and you haven't checked out Soltak, that's Mad Ruth's book.
Yeah.
Check that out. It's a phenomenal Sid Mead, Roy Cobb, sci-fi inspired aesthetically book that's got a really good story to it that he spent years developing. I highly recommend you check that out. And you know, Mad Ruth are the kind of guys that, you know, in issue 3 moving forward, those are the kind of guys I love to give.
Yeah, I want to get them in there.
And
even though I'm going to obsess
them
the rest of the night that you said Barton Brothers, and it engaged some gear in my brain that made me say Kozar instead of Kordath. And that's going to keep me awake at night. But be that as it may, the Mad Ruth. It's some great.
I had him on here too. He was on one of my first. I mean, this is one of my first shows. Oh, you
great guy, man.
Yeah,
that book looks awesome. He did all he needed to do to make the perfect book. You know. And it's got everything you need in a sci-fi book. Everything you fucking want. It's got it in there. For me,
I think
all the boxes. Yeah. You know, so you guys go out and back that book. But I was wondering, guys, what's your favorite beer?
Well, That's a tough one.
That's not hard. I'll go first on this one.
Yeah.
So my career has offered me the beautiful opportunity of having traveled the world and lived in a multiple of exotic and not so exotic locales. And I had the privilege and honor of finding Munich, just outside of Munich, as my home for a number of years. Actually, just south of Munich, pretty much halfway between Munich, outside of Munich. I don't want to get too exact, otherwise people will figure out who I worked for. But yeah,
spoilers. It may have been a car company. Okay, continue.
Yeah, right.
So while I was there, I developed a deep appreciation for Dunkels and Dunkels and Doppelbocks.
Oh yeah, love them Doppelbocks.
And coming back to the States, I had a hell of a time.
Yeah, it's hard, right?
Finding a good Doppel, and so. I randomly stumble across this microbrewery in a mini mall by me, meeting a buddy.
Nice.
And he spent some time in Offenbach, thanks to the U.S. government. And he got out, and we were both in our home state, and we got together for a beer. And it's this little tiny brewery in a mini mall. And it's like the one locale next to like a Foot Locker, or no, it was like a Shoe Carnival or a Foot Locker, and like a Bed Bath and Beyond type place. And he had the best goddamn Doppelbock that I've had outside of Germany. And we got to talking with him, and he wouldn't give us the recipe. And a couple years ago, he closed shop up. He retired. And we both showed up and had a beer, and it's the last day open, and he gave us the recipe for his Doppel. And to this day, we still make it once a year. We get together and homebrew our own batch. So it's I got to go with that. It's just both for the camaraderie of brewing your own beer with a buddy, and just the memories associated with it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's cool being.
There was a time when I had an affection for darker German beers for home brews, but I will sort of answer the question in the opposite in every way, because my story is not nearly so glamorous. But what I found was, this is a very vanilla answer, but what I found was that I was traveling the country, not the world, but the country, racing motorcycles. And there were inevitable after parties and go hang out at the bar afterwards, and, and race Saturday night, and then get up at 5 or 6 in the morning on Sunday and figure out how many 100 miles you had to go, or 1,000, to get to where you were going next. So therefore I picked Coors Light, because while traveling the country, I found that no matter how many Coors Light I drank, I could get up in the morning, have some coffee and orange juice, get my ass on down the road. Whereas the other,
what I don't like about Coors Light, though, is if I crack a Coors Banquet, you can almost hear as that seal breaks, Eastbound and Down playing. But Coors Light, you don't get that. It's just not the same.
So some of it does have to do with the fact that we crossed that line of demarcation when I was a young boy with my dad and my Uncle Joe doing a different kind of motorcycle racing. But still, I am of the era where Coors was commonly available in the golden can, as long as you were over on the west.
Exactly.
But if you were going east, you better just load up the cooler, because then it wouldn't be there. It may have something to do with my first beers was, I'm 6 or 7, and Dad's like, you can have a sip. And it was a bootleg. It was a bootleg from Colorado Coors, to be sure.
Well, that was a different era, man. And whether it was the 70s or the 80s, and whether it was a stock oak 2x4 ramp that you were assembling with nails with your buddies, or just a sheet of plywood that you were throwing over a cinder block, exactly. There was an inherent sense of danger that was to every aspect of our mutual childhoods. Yeah. And, dude, just the ability to have an eighth of a stick of dynamite in an M80 that you could just walk to the corner store and buy, because, hey, liberty and freedom. Dude,
I was living up in this. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it's a different world, and there was danger inherent on every aspect of every choice that you made as a kid, but you made it knowing that, the the choice was your own.
Yeah.
And I think we've lost something along the way. And when you
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
about turning back to indie comics and turn into that, I'm not going to equate the two, but I am, because I can. And the two is there's a level of danger every time you back a book. And when you back a book, you don't know what's inherently there. But I want to think back to that childhood. Man, aren't you glad you made that choice?
I lived in this. I moved into this. I took over this motorcycle magazine 15 years ago, Ancient History, but took it over. They wanted new management. It was kind of floundering. But curiously, this one company had gobbled up another company, and they were in a out of deference to Aldous, which is not the same state, but a similar, like bordering on a Great Lake, frozen tundra of a horrific place to live if you're a Southern California, North Florida, Texas, Kansas boy like myself. You just, you're like, yeah, it gets cold enough in Topeka for me. Screw that.
Yeah, right.
None of that's the point. The point is that all of a sudden, it was a good job. I liked the job. And as a temporary measure, I moved into this rather suburban neighborhood, did the whole rent a house and, got to have a garage and all that. And then this is 15 years, a scant 15 years ago in certain ways. I'd be out in the driveway washing my bikes after going out and riding, and all the neighborhood kids, they still rode bicycles, and they would just flock, what's this? Who is this guy? And he's got dirt bikes. And what I'm getting to is back to Aldous. It triggered a memory, not only of all the ramps that I jumped on my bicycle by putting a 2x8 over a cinder block, but it was only 15 years ago. I'd tell them kids, build a ramp. Whoever jumps the farthest, I will give this trophy. Because I got all these fucking trophies laying around. I need to get rid of them somehow. These kids ain't never, I don't know. Maybe I contributed to the everybody gets a trophy generation, but I don't think so. I was just like, whoever jumps the farthest, I will give you the second place trophy. No, I'm keeping the first place ones. Screw that. But I need to get rid of the second and third shit. But can you imagine? The point is, can you imagine doing that now? The liability, the mothers pounding on your door. It was only 15 years ago or something. But kids don't ride bikes anymore anyway, so that element of danger is gone.
And that comes back to the storytelling too.
Yeah, it's a bit sad.
Life experiences. Like you got to get out there and live a little bit sometimes, and before you tell a story, like go out there and do stuff. I guess if you want to be a good writer too, that helps a little bit. I think is a life in the storyteller. Can't just watch TV and movies all the time. I think there was a tweet Aldous responded to earlier, maybe an hour or two ago, where someone was saying something, and then a lot of the content that's out now is kind of got something in there, and how are you gonna consume that content and use that as a base to write a good story?
Well, you have to have life experience to write a good story. And today is November 10th, and it's the anniversary of something dear to my heart, given I live in the great state, the Wolverine state of Michigan. And that is, it's the anniversary of the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald, made famous by Gordon Lightfoot's folk song. But there's one line in that you will never understand completely unless you've been on Superior and seen the winds coming out of the Northeast. And that's, does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours? And until you see a swell on the largest freshwater lake in the world.
Yeah, it's pretty.
And it comes out of nowhere. You don't understand that line. It has meaning. It has importance. But if you've lived it, it has value. And there's an emotion that's associated with it. And then to go along with that, today is also the Marine Corps birthday. So to all my cran-chewing brothers out there, happy birthday, guys.
Yeah. Semper Fi.
Semper Fi. Hell, Ray. Yeah, the Death Dealer, man. That's that's their symbol. Back to comics again, man. And Frazetta, and it's crazy.
Well, that was. I think there's a lot to that era, and I kind of harken back to that earlier, talking about Wally Wood and Wits End and Mike Friedrich's Star Reach, but those true sense of indies, those were guys. I mean, Wally Wood at the time had the highest page rate of anybody, right? It would be like Jim Lee just kind of giving the finger to the system and doing his own thing right now, arguably. And what they did and what they created was out of a pure love for the medium. And that's where this comes from. That's where Rocket comes from. And Steve and I have no aspirations that we are in any tier, nor are we artists, but we are not at that tier. What we do have is a deep appreciation, a deep, lore, if you will, on what comics mean, what comics are, and where we'd love to see comics being. And there's no place that we'd rather associate with than, what Comicsgate and Indie Comics are doing, because holy shit, man, this is some of the best stuff in the market right now.
Oh yeah, man. I think it's, personally for me, I think it's the best, Comicsgate and Indie Comics. That's all the stuff I'm buying right now. And what you guys are doing, man, you're putting this out with the signal, so people can see it. And also we can go back and look at it. And if you're watching right now and you're a new creator, you're an up and comer, this is a perfect book for you to back and peek into the world and find out how it's going on, and being entertained by the magazine too. So if you guys can check this book out, probably going to wrap it up right now, boys. Is there anything else you'd like to say about the book?
No, but I would like to point out that I was dissing on Wisconsin, not Michigan. Sorry,
that's
Wisconsin.
fine. Nobody cares about Wisconsin.
Well, I don't know why anybody wants to live on Lake Michigan. I can tell you that.
Well, hey now.
My dad's side's from Michigan. It's a small world. My mom's side, they're from Arkansas.
It's a cold world up in there.
Yeah.
I'll take the Ozarks any day.
Yeah, right. It's beautiful over there.
Yeah.
No, as far as a last word goes, check out Rocket. If it's not your speed, but you like what we're doing, share the link, man. The best thing you can do to support something is, if you don't want to back it, if you can't back it, is just share the link, because maybe you can find somebody out there that does. And we appreciate every backer. We appreciate all the support we've gotten, and the support has been it's been moving, honestly. And I'm not one to lightly talk about emotion, but it has been just outstanding, the response that we've gotten and how much people have been like, man, this is great. And it means a lot. I can't even put it into words, and normally I'm a little bit of a wordsmith, but it means a lot, the response we've gotten. And thank you to everybody, whether you've shared the link, whether you've backed, whether you're going to back in the future, whether you have already are going to share the link. We just really appreciate it.
Yeah. I guess I would add one thing while we're shilling. Basically prompted by what Aldous says about it's great to see some movement. Rocket Mission 1 does remain in demand, and thanks to some people that have, I don't know, maybe they want to see what they're getting into before backing Mission 2. Rocket Mission 1 is available, bundled up with Mission 2. But if you want me to mail it out like this week, buy it tonight. And if you want me to mail it out next week, it remains in demand. And if you want, if you don't want to wait a couple of months, you can find out what we're trying to do by backing the first mission. Hell
yeah.
I'll run down to the post office just for you.
So as a recap, listen to Iron Maiden, watch John Sturges films, back Rocket, and subscribe to the channel.
And brew your own beer if you can.
And always brew your own beer. And depending on how much land you own and your licensing restrictions, get your distiller's permit.
Yeah, that too. Well, Steve, where can people find you at, Steve?
I'm the real Steve Dye. Campaign's obviously on Indiegogo, but it's not particularly searchable, so maybe Google it or just go on your Twitter. And by all means, if you are in need of somebody to do pre-press work, copy editing work, that sort of thing, I've got openings at present.
That's your man. And I've heard people talk about both these guys. So you guys need editors and pre-press, both of them. Sorry, my
right. Yeah, no, wherever that is. But I've been fortunate enough to work on 3 or 4 dozen books now, and I don't get any complaints. So
nothing but the goods.
Yeah.
So all this.
Sure. All this All This on the Farm, all one word, is my Twitter handle. If you're looking for me on YouTube, it's All This on the Farm, just off Orwell Lane. And my channel, I focus my channel specifically on 1930s pulp, 1940s pulp, 1930s, 1940s old time radio. I clean up primarily the shadow. I'm a huge fan of Maxwell Grant's character, the character that Condé Nast and Street and Smith put on the map. And, I do a bunch of other stuff too, mainly stuff that I think kind of fits all in that pulp adventure vein. I think there's something that's lacking today in entertainment, and that which is lacking is it's a strong masculine story. And
it's just,
if there's anything that you can get out of a shadow radio show or
pulp.
any number of the other any other number of the radio shows that I highlight, which includes Flash Raymond, Raymond's famous character of Flash Gordon, or Elliot Lewis's creation, which is Voyage of the Scarlet Queen. It is certainly old time radio. So be amazed by the stories that your grandparents listened to and your parents listened to, and be amazed at how good they are. And then ask yourself, as you turn your eye to modern entertainment, where that went. And then turn your eye back to indie comics and turn your eye back to Rocket, and we'll show you where you can find it today.
Hell yeah. That's right. Everyone that's watching, if you can, go check out Rocket. It's Mission 2. If you have, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram and Facebook, share it out on those places too. There's a lot of cats on Facebook that would love this book if they knew about it. It's hard sometimes getting it through the system. So thanks again for watching, everybody. Remember, be bold, be brave, and roll the bones to know your role. You guys have a good night. Bye-bye.